So how's the real estate market in Puerto Vallarta? Well, it's definitely not a bad time to buy real estate in PV. While we are still in a buyer's market, it won't last forever. And what type of property you choose to buy and where may determine how you react to this market update. Hola, I'm Diani Leal, real estate broker and investment consultant based in Puerto Vallarta and Banderas Bay, Mexico. And this channel is brought to you by Dianimite Investment Realty, which is brokered by EXP. Before we get started, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. It really helps entrepreneurs like me continue creating what I hope is useful and valuable content for you. And it also helps me reach more people. From a broader analysis to a detailed update for July 2025, if you've ever considered a real estate purchase in Puerto Vallarta or surrounding areas, or you're thinking about selling your property, stick around so you can stay informed and make the best educated and strategic choice to help you reach your goals. First, let's talk about the bigger picture. All property types, all regions, and what's happened so far in 2025 year to date. In the first 7 months of 2025, nearly 1,000 properties have sold across the two municipalities, totaling over $513 million in sales volume. Average sales prices across all property types, condos, houses, land, etc., are holding near $524K USD, with sellers receiving about 98% of their listing price on average. However, properties are taking longer to sell, with average days on market now over 4 months for all areas. So let's talk inventory. In the whole region, months of inventory for condos just spiked to 44 months. That means at the current rate of sales, it would take nearly 4 years to absorb existing listings. This is a major buyer's market. Currently active listings in condos total 2,846, while houses total 557. However, inventory levels for houses are dropping, with only 23 months of inventory in July compared to over 40 earlier in the year. Still high, but headed in the right direction. So I just want to chime in here with a little commentary, and then we'll dive into the details on July 2025. So this broader market analysis just gives you a little bit of a perspective on where we are in the market. Some of you may be familiar with what's going on in Puerto Vallarta during the pandemic, and as a result of the pandemic, there was an increased demand. So developers quickly were working overtime to ramp up and increase the supply. And it was all pretty much congruent with the action in the sales until that demand slowed down once the impact of the pandemic began to subside, somewhere around March, April of last year. And mind you, it slowed down a lot because these were also election years in Mexico and the United States, which are two of the biggest players in Mexico's real estate market. So then we're left with a ton of supply and very little demand, which nobody really wants to see in any industry. So what happened? Once developers started recognizing this, they slowed down the production. But we were still left with a ton of supply that wasn't meeting the demand. So then we went through a really slow year. After the election uncertainty subsided and things stabilized a little bit more, the real estate market in Puerto Vallarta and surrounding areas is pretty active. And we just are trying to catch up with all of that excess inventory that was created during that surge in sales, which, by the way, was a result of an unprecedented global event that upset the economic activity in just about every industry worldwide. So it's pretty much to be expected that we'll still be seeing some lingering results from this. But it's good to see these numbers and know that now we're starting to catch up a little bit and the absorption rates are reducing. When looking at a market with large amounts of inventory, there are key factors to consider. especially how it might impact your past, current, or future real estate decisions. Property values are directly tied to supply and demand. When supply increases, values typically decrease. I'm sure you know this. It's basic economics, and it of course applies to real estate. So ask yourself, what type of inventory are you buying or selling? Condos or houses? How many bedrooms? Where is it located? Each region is different, and most importantly, what are your real estate goals? If you're an investor seeking a rental property, for example, you'll want to know how many active rentals exist in your category and region and where that number is headed. For example, 2-bedroom condos are the most common type of inventory in this area, and their rental value has been steadily declining in some areas due to the saturated market. And if you can swing it and you're looking for a rental property, I really do recommend going with a 3-bedroom or above. In the luxury rental market, houses tend to outperform condos thanks to the privacy and private amenities they offer for group travel. Demand for these homes is high and supply is low, so that combination helps preserve your property's value, ensuring appreciation and supporting higher rental income. This is a broad overall report for PV and Banderas Bay areas. If you'd like more specific stats on a specific region and inventory, let's say condos in La Cruz, for example, my contact information is in my page's bio, in this video description, and pinned to the comments. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to run an analysis for you that is more specific on an area that you are interested in. And if you're flexible, then you can explore some different regions and compare and contrast what the inventory and the market trends are doing in that specific area. Okay, so let's talk about July 2025, since the month just ended, and hopefully I'll get this video up and published before the end of August, so everything will still be relevant. Let's talk about how the market is doing right now for condos and houses, primarily in Puerto Vallarta and Riviera Nayarit. The July 2025 real estate market across Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco, and Bahía de Banderas, Riviera Nayarit, showed solid growth overall compared to last year at this time, though performance varied significantly between property types and municipalities. So first, supply and inventory. Active listings remain high across all property types, with condos in both Puerto Vallarta and Bahía de Banderas each exceeding 1,300 active units. Houses have much lower active inventory, around 215 in Puerto Vallarta and about 600 in Banderas Bay. And both have been trending down slightly since earlier in the year. New listings slowed in several segments compared to last year, particularly in higher price ranges. You can see the spikes earlier in the year, especially for condos in Puerto Vallarta. But July shows much smaller peaks in new listings. For sold listings in July 2025, Puerto Vallarta condos, 66 sales with a 27% year-over-year growth. Puerto Vallarta houses, 18 sales with a 20% year-over-year growth. Banderas Bay condos, 84 sales with a 68% year-over-year growth. And Banderas Bay houses with 33 sales and an 18% year-over-year growth. Overall, total sales rose 22% year-over-year, with 201 transactions versus 165 in July 2024. But it's clear from these charts that the composition of that growth depends heavily on the property type and location. 2, pricing trends. Median sales prices increased in 3 of the 4 segments year over year. Puerto Vallarta condos, $438,717 with a 34% increase. Puerto Vallarta houses, $315,000 with a 19% increase. Banderas Bay houses, $414,500 with a 22% increase. And Banderas Bay condos dipped to $330,000 with a 12% decrease, driven by more sales and lower priced units. Something you can see reflected in the chart where the orange sold price line dips below the list price lines. And also, as you may have seen, there's more inventory in Banderas Bay condos than really anything else. Average sale prices posted the largest gains in Puerto Vallarta condos, 24%. And Banderas Bay houses up 26%. Sale to list price ratios stayed strong. Low 90% range for condos, high 80% to low 90% for houses. The ratio trends show condos holding a tighter gap between asking and selling prices in both regions, while houses, especially in Puerto Vallarta, saw more fluctuation earlier this year before tightening up in June and July. 3. Market pace. Absorption rates remain elevated, the lowest being 19 months for Puerto Vallarta houses to the highest at over 42 months for Banderas Bay condos, which makes sense as there is a lot of new construction going on in Banderas Bay and as it's at a more active stage of growth than PV. This also reflects the abundant condo supply, which we've already discussed. Puerto Vallarta absorption rates have really dipped this year, which is great. And all categories have been trending downward in recent months, which is a really good sign that the market is reactivated and finally catching up with the overproduction that we talked about that happened during the pandemic era. Days on market increased for Puerto Vallarta condos, going up 8% year over year, but dropped in Banderas Bay condos and houses, suggesting quicker closings there. Puerto Vallarta houses are hovering just over 200 days on market, which is still a long selling period, but the relatively stable line in recent months suggests the market pace has leveled out. 4. Volume and activity. Sales volume mirrored unit sales trends with big year-over-year gains for Banderas Bay condos and houses, steady for Puerto Vallarta houses, and softer for Puerto Vallarta condos. Luxury properties, 1 million and up, transactions were more frequent in Puerto Vallarta condos and Banderas Bay houses, but still represent a smaller portion of overall activity. As you can see, the sold sale volume line remains far below the active and new list volumes, which is typical in a high inventory environment. However, steady sold volumes for houses, especially in Banderas Bay, show there's solid demand in certain niches despite the overall supply levels. So, as you can see, July 2025 was marked by a notable surge in Banderas Bay condo sales, which was 68% since last year, offsetting softer Puerto Vallarta condo performance, which actually went down 27% since last year. Houses in both municipalities showed healthy annual growth, with overall sales up 22% compared to July 2024. Pricing trends remain favorable in most segments, though high inventory, particularly in condos, continues to keep absorption rates elevated. So that's where the Puerto Vallarta and Banderas Bay market stands as of July 2025, a mix of strong gains in certain property types and a buyer's market in others, and really most. The key takeaway? Your strategy needs to match your segment and location. If you'd like a custom breakdown for your specific property type or neighborhood, I can pull that for you. Just reach out using the contact information in my bio or in the description below. Please don't hesitate to comment if you have any thoughts about this market update. If you find it helpful, don't hesitate to hit the like button and make sure to share it with someone else who's following the PV real estate market. Until next time.